Good spirit, he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it. Your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. The kind hand trembled. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own, the bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. This is, of course, from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And I know it's January, Christmas is over, but New Year's was this week. And Ebeneezer Scrooge says, I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. What does that mean? What does that look like? A Christmas tree lit up in your living room all year? Santa and his reindeer with their legs moving back and forth in your front lawn all year? What is the meaning of Christmas that we can honor it in our heart and keep it all the year? In the film Miracle on 34th Street, not the old one in black and white, but the new one in color, Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, is having a conversation with a non-believer. And he says this, I'm not just a whimsical figure who wears a charming suit and affects a jolly demeanor. I'm a symbol of the human ability to suppress the selfish and hateful tendencies that rule the major part of our lives. The word Santa is Spanish. Martin, what does Santa mean? What does the word Santa mean? Yeah? Saint? Like holy. Saint, like holy. Because it's Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus. So Santa means holy. What does the Holy Spirit do? Well, if Santa is a symbol of the human ability to suppress the selfish and hateful tendencies that rule the major part of our lives, where does he get that symbology from? In Romans chapter 8, starting in verse 12, St. Paul writes, Therefore, dear brothers and sisters, you have no obligation to do what your sinful nature urges you to do. For if you live by its dictates, you will die. But if through the power of the Spirit you put to death the deeds of your sinful nature, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. So you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now we call him Abba, Father. For his Spirit joins with our spirit to affirm that we are God's children. So the Holy Spirit joins with our spirit and supernaturally helps our ability to suppress the selfish and hateful tendencies that rule the major part of our lives. Remember that the mythological figure of Santa Claus developed from the historical person of St. Nicholas, a Christian leader of the early church who was so unnaturally selfless and loving that the legend of his selfless love developed into the myth of Santa Claus, who represents all of Christmas, the season of selfless love. How did one person become so selfless? How did one person become so loving? The Holy Spirit of God partnered with Nick's spirit. And Nick allowed the Holy Spirit of God to work on his spirit, not just one day every winter solstice, but every day throughout the entire year. The song Boxing Day by Reliant K is a lament that Christmas is over. Verse 2 says this: "The hearts of men are bitter and weathered, as cold as the snow that falls from above. But just for one day, we all came together. We showed the whole world that we know how to love." Saint Nick was known for his love, and Christmas is a day of love. So love is how we honor Christmas and try to keep it all the year. In the first gospel, chapter 22, starting in verse 35, one of the Pharisees, an expert in the law, tested Jesus with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." Love God and love others. These are inseparably connected. God commands us to love others. You cannot love God and disobey him. So loving God and not loving others is not something that you can do. Loving others is part of loving God. So what is love? Don't quote the song. Some of you might know the song, but the English language really falls short with using the word love as this big umbrella for so many different concepts. But in the Old English King James Version of the Bible, we find many instances of the word love replaced with a different word. 1 Corinthians 16:14. "Let all your things be done with charity." Colossians 3:14. "And above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness." 1 Timothy 1:5. "Now the end of the commandment is charity, out of a pure heart and of a good conscience and of faith unfeigned." 1 Peter 4:8. "And above all things have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins." 2 Peter 1:7. "And to godliness add brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness add charity." Revelation 2:19. "I know thy works and charity and service and faith and thy patience and thy works, and I know the last to be more than the first." In today's modern English, I would have connected the word charity to the word generosity more than to the word love. Charity is almost a bad word to use today. Have you ever heard someone say, "I don't want to be a charity case," when you try to give them something? And yet, biblical charity seems to be more than just mere generosity. In the Sermon on the Mount in the first Gospel, chapter 6, starting in verse 1, here's what Jesus preached about generosity. "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So, it's entirely possible to have generosity without love. Which reminds me of the love chapter in the Bible, this list of great deeds you can do, but each one of them is followed with this idea that without love, these great deeds are meaningless. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Would you like me to demonstrate? If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, there's the generosity, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Remember that list of Old English King James verses that replaced the word love with the word charity. In Old English, King James version of the Bible, this is not the love chapter. This is the charity chapter. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth. There's a lot of F's in the King James Bible. So charity and generosity are not the same thing. Generosity is only the what. Generosity is only giving. Charity is not only the what, but charity also includes the why. Love. Lights decorating houses around the winter solstice are not themselves what Christmas is for, but they represent what Christmas is for. Even before modern globalization, every culture in the Northern Hemisphere individually developed their own festival of lights around the winter solstice, because it is the shortest, darkest day and the longest, darkest night of the year. And seasonal depression has always been a struggle for some members of every community. So, every community lights up the darkest nights of the year to help those among them going through seasonal depression. And that represents more than just physical light in physical darkness. Those lights represent us and how we can be the light in someone else's dark moment at any time throughout the year. "What's today?" cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes. "Eh?" returned the boy with all his might of wonder. "What's today, my fine fellow?" said Scrooge. Today, replied the boy. Why, Christmas Day. It's in all caps, by the way. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. It's spelled with an A instead of an E. Hello. This old English, you know. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, replied the lad. An intelligent boy, said Scrooge, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the one as big as me? Returned the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. Is it? Said Scrooge. Go and buy it. Now here's a really old Englishism, if I've ever heard one. Walker, exclaimed the boy. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say walker instead of like, you're joking. You're pulling my leg. No, no, said Scrooge. I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell him to bring it here, that I may give him the direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Happy New Year. This year, I encourage you to resolve, to look for opportunities to show charity and love, and in doing so, to honor Christmas in your heart and try to keep it all the year. When God showed the greatest charity, leaving his throne in heaven to become a human, the angels sang, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. We're going to sing this song. The main line is, let there be peace. And then it continues, let it start in me. As we take down our Christmas decorations, carefully wrap our strings of lights just to find them somehow haphazardly knotted next November. As we put away the lights, remember to not put away your light. St. Nick is remembered not because his charity was just for one day. The Holy Spirit was constantly loving everyone around St. Nick through Nick all year, especially those who needed that love the most. Back to the Sermon on the Mount. In the first gospel, chapter 5, starting in verse 14, Jesus says this, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. This year, look for the people around you who are going through a moment of darkness, because light shines brightest in the dark. I'd like to have Mark come up and pray while we prepare to sing the last song. Oh, and then, of course, there will be the vote on the budget after, so don't get up and leave.